It's Friday, July 8th, 2016, and I'm your host, Michael Ramsing, with this week's Seafood News Roundup, brought to you by the third edition of Ernest Berry's Commercial Guide to Fish and Shellfish. In this week's top story, Canada decided to scrap the last-in, first-out management policy for the northern shrimp fishery. But first, here's a rundown of some of the other top news items from around the seafood industry. Before the long 4th of July holiday in the U.S., China Fishery Group and its parent company Pacific Andes Resources each filed for bankruptcy protection in a New York City court. China Fishery listed as much as $50 million in liability and more than $500 million in assets. Immediate impacts from the filings including a hold on the group's efforts to sell off its fish meal assets in Peru and the resignation of China Fisheries Executive Director Paul Jeremy Bro. In other company news, Thai Union announced another expansion to the North American lobster industry with a deal to acquire a majority stake in Canadian lobster processor La Pêcherie de Chez Nous. This is Thai Union's second major move into the North American lobster industry since last February when its subsidiary, Chicken of the Sea Frozen Foods, acquired the assets to Orion Seafood International. We now bring in seafood news correspondent Emily Zahowski with an update on the FDA's latest seafood refusals through the month of June.
Thanks, Michael. The FDA's overall seafood refusals continue to outpace last year and are up 33% through the first half of this year compared to 2015. Tuna was the most rejected seafood item in June, enough to move it past snapper as the most refused seafood item by the FDA so far this year. Filth is the top reason for all refusals in 2016. In June, filth accounted for over 60% of the FDA's rejection for the month, and it is responsible for over 75% of all refusals for the year. Remember, you can sign up for the Ernest Berry's Foreign Trade Data Service to get more FDA refusal data and analysis. I'm Emily Zuhowski. Now back to you, Michael.
Thanks, Emily. Canada's northern shrimp industry is once again this week's top seafood news story after the federal fishery minister Dominic LeBlanc accepted a panel recommendation to kill the last-in, first-out shrimp management policy. Minister LeBlanc agreed with the panel that the LIFO policy should be scrapped in favor of a quota-sharing regime for the shrimp fishery. The minister started transition discussions with industry stakeholders during a July 7th Northern Shrimp Advisory Committee meeting. In the meantime, Minister LeBlanc set interim fishing quotas in the key Area 6 fishing region where harvesting had been suspended. The inshore and offshore fleets were each allocated 4,500 metric tons, while an additional 500 metric tons was set aside for special quota holders. A quick look at the wholesale seafood markets, powered by Ernest Berry's Comtel, shows the Asian white shrimp market holding steady at listed levels ahead of new season production. Canadian scallops listed at premium price points, and lower wild sockeye prices as the Bristol Bay season comes online. Remember to log into seafoodnews.com for more news from around the seafood industry, and be sure to log into the Seafood tab in Comtel for all of our market quotations, news, and analysis. Today's show was brought to you by the third edition of Ernest Berry's Commercial Guide to Fish and Shellfish, now featuring a modern, easy-to-read design along with several new species. Thanks for watching our recap. I'm Michael Ramsing, and we'll see you next week. Next week.